Hey guys, welcome to another video from Historic Militaria. Today we'll be looking at the British Mark IV helmet, or more commonly known as the Turtle helmet. And these were issued right around D-Day to the first British soldiers. And so its first combat use would have been in mid to late 1944. And they were used actually through the 80s and 90s, so they saw service wherever British soldiers were, up through the Falklands, and even into the 90s. I believe they were used at the beginning of Desert Storm, and they were eventually replaced with Kevlar helmets. And they went through some various changes, usually in the liner design more than anything. But it's a pretty innovative helmet, and it's a pretty cool helmet that you may come across on the surplus market. You can see how it gets its name for the turtle. It's kind of a cross between the early British Brodie helmet and maybe an M1 helmet. So it's got your typical dome, but a little bit more flared out that the British seem to like. And you've got your rivets real low down here. And that's actually the big difference between the Mark III and the Mark IV. The Mark III was a standard British military helmet for World War II, and they had the rivets a little bit higher. These are lower. You'll find these dated. The British usually dated these. This one, unfortunately, I could not find a date on. I could find a maker, but no date. So my best guess, judging by the maker and everything else, is that this is a 1950s vintage helmet. So probably early 50s. I've seen a lot dated between about 1951 and 1953, obviously during the Korean conflict. So this one is painted in a sort of a brownish color, which is a little bit textured, not super textured. This was the first color that they used, so it's an earlier paint scheme than you see on a lot of them. A lot of them wore a green khaki. And we'll flip this guy over. This one actually has the later liner. You can see automatically this is a giveaway. Kind of a turtleneck material here. And your just typical cloth chin strap. And just this would be marked. The markings on this one are pretty faded, but I'm going to guess this is probably from the 70s. This liner is actually dated 1977. And we can kind of open this up. And it's pretty difficult to see, but it's got a pretty slick liner system in there. If we could ever get this open. You know what? We'll just look at a different one. We've got a liner right here. The cool thing about these helmets is the liner pops right out. And the way it pops out is it's got a lift the dot system on it, which is similar to US web belts and holsters. So down here, you've got your lift the dot button. And right here, you've got a little tab right there. So all you do when it's in the helmet is grab, actually the tab is not there. Grab this tab. You're going to see that tab right there. And that's going to be laying down in the helmet. So you just grab that and pull, and this will pull the lift the dot, and you'll hear a snap, and out comes your liner from the helmet. So it actually made replacing a liner very easy for the soldier. You didn't need tools, you didn't need anything, you just gave your soldier a new liner if his was damaged, and poof, there you go. This is an earlier style of liner. This one I believe is dated from the 50s, and this was typical of what you would see again in a 1950s helmet, 1950s vintage. This one, you can see there's leather here that's a little bit lighter colored, and this would be typical of one from the Falklands era. And I swear to God, this thing does not want to show itself. But open up, look down there, you can see your tab, and it's actually marked front there. So you just pull that tab, and the entire thing would pop off once you hear a snap. To put it back in, lay it down the correct way in the helmet, and just give some pressure right here, and you'll hear this snap back into place. First thing you'd actually do is align the post. We'll take a look at another helmet that doesn't have the liner in it. You would align this post right here with your liner, and you just get that centered up, and then you just apply pressure until you hear that snap. So it's really easy if you want to take it out to look for markings or anything like that. This helmet is dated, and it's a 1952 helmet. I actually put a little bit of oil to just see where the date is a little bit better. There's your maker mark, and there's your date. That one's actually 1953, I stand corrected. The nice thing about these is a lot of them have a nice broad arrow in them, so it's definitely British. The liners are going to be broad arrow marked. They're well marked helmets. Pretty interesting if you collect any kind of British stuff. This one is 1953, obviously, and I believe it has been repainted at one point. It's got a very textured khaki finish, and this would probably have just been standard. I'm not really sure of all the paint schemes that were used. I know the British use these for a lot of different purposes. I've seen police ones that are painted. I've seen incident response teams. I've seen a lot of different variants of these. So it's a pretty wide field for collecting these. Again, the cool thing is the whole liner system, and if you want to look at it, you know, disassemble your helmet and just kind of get a feel of what you bought. That's kind of cool to do. These are still pretty inexpensive on the commercial market if you're looking to acquire one. They're not super hard to find. They are, you know, in varying states of condition, but a lot were surplused out, a lot are floating around. And if you're looking for a helmet that did see service in World War II, so it's a World War II design, but you know, also served all the way up into the 90s, this really is another cool Cold War helmet that is available for the collector today. Again, they're certainly not making any more of them, so if you're contemplating picking one up, why wait? These are great collector's items, and they're just kind of fun to have, and there's a lot of cool variants, and it is a British helmet that certainly, if you're collecting anything from Western Europe or the Allied nations, is a must to fill in your collection. Hope you've enjoyed watching this, and we will be doing more on various helmets and munitions and firearms very soon. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe.